The chamber was never designed for silence. It was built for arguments that shook star systems, for verdicts that redrew borders, for voices that carried the weight of extinct civilizations. Yet when the human delegate stepped forward, silence arrived anyway, heavy and unnatural, as if the room itself had learned fear. No one interrupted him, not because they respected him, because something in his presence made interruption feel unsafe. "We are not here to threaten you," he said, voice steady, almost ordinary. "We are here to inform you of a boundary. Do not cross into human space. Do not take human civilians. Do not test what you do not understand." A ripple passed through the assembly. Not agreement, amusement. The galaxy had seen many young species speak like this before, always before breaking. The speaker of the council tilted its body forward, sensors flickering. "And if we do not comply," the human did not change expression, "then you will learn why we asked only once." A pause. Then laughter spread across multiple tiers of the chamber, controlled at first, then open. Civilizations that had survived supernova wars and vacuum plagues laughed at a single species that had not yet even expanded beyond a single spiral arm. Only a few did not laugh. They had seen humans before, not in diplomacy, in aftermath. The human turned slightly, as if acknowledging none of them in particular. "You will not believe this warning," he added. "That is normal. Most species don't believe consequences until they become statistics." He stepped back and left. No final demand, no dramatic exit, just departure. That was the first mistake the galaxy made. They assumed calm meant weakness. 3 cycles later, the outer human colonies began to burn, not all at once, carefully, systematically. First mining stations disappeared, then relay hubs, then civilian habitats at the edge of mapped space. The Dominion, an alliance of older predator civilizations, called it enforcement. They claimed human expansion was destabilizing trade routes. They said limited occupation would correct behavior. On the colony of Varel 9, correction meant orbital bombardment. 40,000 civilians died before the first distress signal finished transmitting. The Dominion fleets expected surrender after that. Instead, they received silence. That silence confused them. It should have been panic. It should have been negotiation. It should have been collapse. But human channels went dark. No leaders responded. No ambassadors appeared. Only static. One Dominion admiral commented during briefing, almost amused, "They are frightened into compliance." Another added, "Or they are regrouping." The first dismissed it. Regrouping implies capability. So the fleets moved deeper. Inside human space there was no panic. There was counting. Names, ships, routes, patterns. Humanity did not react like the younger civilizations the Dominion had crushed before. There were no mass evacuations into disorganized fleets, no scattered resistance, no emotional broadcasts begging for mercy. Instead, something more unsettling occurred. Every surviving human colony began consolidating. Ships stopped moving alone. Convoys formed. Civilian vessels received escort protocols. Old freighters were refitted into sensor traps. And everywhere, quietly, without announcement, data was shared. Every attack pattern, every enemy signature, every weakness observed in passing encounters over decades. Humans were not panicking. They were compiling. On Earth, the Planetary Council received the final report from Varel 9. It contained only 3 words: confirmed occupation, no survivors. There was no debate afterward, only authorization. A single directive was transmitted to all fleets. Containment phase complete. Switch to retrieval protocol. No one outside human command understood what that meant. Not yet. The Dominion's second mistake was timing. They expected reaction. They expected outrage. They expected diplomacy breakdowns, fractured resistance, scattered retaliation. Instead, for weeks after the occupation began, nothing visible happened. No counterattack, no fleet engagement, no heroic last stand, only continued silence. This created confidence. Confidence created expansion. Expansion created exposure. And exposure created targets. The first Dominion supply convoy to vanish was reported near the Karthus Drift. 72 ships. Gone. No distress signals. No debris. No witnesses. The Dominion attributed it to piracy. Piracy at that scale was statistically impossible, but comforting to believe. Then a second convoy disappeared, then a relay station, then a patrol fleet of 80 ships sent to investigate, also gone. The Dominion began to modify its language, not occupation, resistance pockets, not losses, operational anomalies. Still, no one admitted the pattern, until a fragment drifted back. A single Dominion escape capsule, scorched and half-melted, recovered near a dead moon. Inside was a recording. It showed human ships, not military formations, not standardized war vessels. Different designs, different markings, different configurations. Some looked like converted freighters, some like industrial platforms, some like ships built from stitched-together wreckage. But they moved together with coordination that made no sense. One Dominion analyst paused the footage and said quietly, "That is not a fleet." Another asked, "What is it then?" The analyst hesitated. "A response system." On Earth, the human fleet command center was not a grand palace or visible capital structure. It was underground, deep, shielded, quiet. Admiral Kieran Voss stood in front of a holographic map of the occupied systems. Red markers spread across 3 sectors. Behind him, officers worked without speaking. No one looked surprised. A junior analyst finally asked the question everyone avoided. "How many retrieval groups are active now?" Kieran did not look up. 17. And Dominion losses? Not tracked. That made the analyst hesitate. Why not tracked? Kieran finally turned. Because tracking implies we are counting enemies. A pause. "We are not counting enemies," he said. "We are collecting people." No one spoke after that. On the central map, one red marker blinked. A civilian cluster, 40,000 missing. Kieran touched it once. "Begin Lantern Protocol." The Lantern was not a ship. It was a category, a doctrine, a principle built from a simple human truth. If someone is taken, you do not escalate war first. You retrieve them first, then escalate if needed. Captain Mara Venn had volunteered for the first operational Lantern vessel. She was not chosen because she was the strongest, or the most aggressive, or the most experienced combat commander. She was chosen because she had once flown into a burning debris field alone to pull out 7 miners when every military ship had declared it non-viable. When asked why, she had said they were still there. That had been enough. Now her ship drifted at the edge of occupied space. No lights, no active signature, only a faint heartbeat beacon pulsing through encrypted channels. Inside her bridge, the crew watched enemy movement patterns without speaking. Her communications officer finally broke the silence. "They're consolidating prisoners on Relay World K Delta." "How many?" Mara asked. "Estimated 30 to 50,000. A pause. "And transport routes suggest something else," the officer added. Mara looked up. "What else?" A hesitation. "Extraction staging." The phrase meant nothing good. Everyone knew it. Mara stood. "Plot insertion." No one objected. They never did, not in Lantern crews, because everyone aboard already understood the rule. If you hesitate long enough to feel fear, someone else becomes a number. K-Delta was not a prison. It was a processing world. From orbit, it looked almost clean. Infrastructure grids, atmospheric regulators, transit hubs. But beneath that surface, layers of containment corridors stretched like veins. The Lantern did not enter through the main grid. It never did. It slid in through debris shadow, riding the remains of a broken cargo array. Mara led the insertion team personally. No armor markings, no insignia, only soft environmental suits and compact breaching tools. The moment they entered the lower corridors, the smell changed. Sterile air mixed with something older. Fear. Not abstract. Biological. Stored. They moved fast. First contact came at Corridor Junction 14, 2 Dominion Ward units. They did not even finish turning before the first shot dropped them. No speeches, no warnings, only movement. Then silence again. That pattern continued. Not because humans were efficient killers, but because they were focused on time. Every second counted as a life somewhere deeper inside the facility. They reached the first containment hall in 9 minutes and stopped, not because of resistance, because of scale. Rows, hundreds of rows, suspended transport pods stretching beyond visual range. Inside them, thousands of species, some awake, some sedated, some barely alive. Mara stepped closer to one pod. A child inside pressed their hand against the glass. No words, just contact. Then a Dominion alarm triggered somewhere above. The entire hall shifted tone. Lights changed. Emergency protocols activated. And over the intercom came a calm Dominion voice. Processing acceleration initiated. Begin emotional harvest stabilization. Rowe, her science officer, went still. "That's not transport," he whispered. Mara didn't look away from the pods. "What is it?" Rowe swallowed. "It's conversion." A pause. "They are extracting neural patterns before execution. The fear response. It's being harvested." Mara finally turned. "Can we shut it down?" Rowe hesitated. "Yes," then added, "but it requires central control access." A beat. "Above us." Mara nodded once. "Then we go up." The escalation began immediately after, not because the Dominion detected them, but because something inside the system recognized disruption. Pods began shifting into defensive lockdown, corridors sealed, automated sentry systems activated. The facility stopped behaving like infrastructure and started behaving like a predator. The Lantern team moved upward through maintenance shafts and service tunnels. Behind them, freed prisoners began to follow. Not because they were told to, because doors were opening everywhere at once. Someone had breached local controls. Not Mara, not Rowe. Something else. A second human signal, coming from outside. "Captain," comms officer said urgently, "we're getting an uplink. Unknown origin. It's rewriting containment permissions." Mara paused mid-step. "Source?" Static, then a voice. Calm, controlled, familiar. "This is Lantern 2. We are on the upper grid. We will hold extraction routes. Move civilians to docking Spine Alpha." Mara closed her eyes briefly. There was another Lantern in system. That changed everything. Not rescue, extraction. Full engagement doctrine. She opened channel. "Lantern 2, confirmed strength." A pause. Then, "2 ships. One is on fire. We are still operational." A second voice cut in. "You better hurry, Mara." It was laughter, but strained. Mara nodded once. "Copy." Then to her team. "We are no longer alone." The midpoint shift came 3 hours later. Rowe reached the central data core first. What he saw changed the trajectory of the mission. The Dominion was not only processing prisoners, they were mapping emotional signatures across species clusters, identifying which combinations produced highest energy output under stress. Families were being kept together, not for preservation, but for optimization. Rowe's voice cracked. "They are building a power model." Mara stepped beside him. "Power for what?" Rowe pointed at the core diagram. A massive structure beneath the planet, connected to hyperspatial anchors, and, something worse, a moving projection path. It extended outward, across neutral space, toward one coordinate cluster. Human space. Mara stared at it, then said quietly, "They're not just harvesting here." "No," Rowe whispered. "They're scaling it." A silence followed. Then Mara spoke into comms. "All units, new objective. Stop extraction cycle. We are not leaving with prisoners alone." A pause. "Repeat." Her voice hardened. "We are not leaving this system intact." That was the shift, from rescue to prevention. The final escalation was not loud. It was inevitable. Once systems realized humans were inside, containment protocols escalated to planetary defense logic. The entire facility began to self-arm. Energy conduits overloaded. Structural walls became weapons. Even gravity stabilization started failing in localized bursts. Mara's team fought through collapsing corridors as prisoners flooded behind them. Not chaos, direction. Something had spread through the facility, a shared understanding. If humans are here, there is a way out. At the docking spine, Lantern 2 finally came into visual range. It was damaged beyond recognition, half its hull missing, engines burning unevenly, but it was still firing. A small Dominion fleet had arrived, trying to seal escape routes. Lantern 2 was holding them off alone. Mara's comm crackled, a voice barely stable. "About time you showed up." "Status," Mara demanded. "Running out of ship." A pause. "Also running out of jokes." Mara looked at the evac stream, thousands pouring toward docking, then at the incoming fleet. She made a decision. "Hold them 5 more minutes." Silence. Then, "That's generous." Then static. The climax began when the planetary core activated full conversion mode. The entire world shifted into energy extraction phase. Prisoners across the planet began experiencing synchronized neural stress. The Dominion had planned to harvest everything at once: emotion, memory, fear. Ro's voice broke over comms. "It's peaking. If this completes, the system will broadcast collapse resonance across the sector." Mara understood instantly. "It will mark targets." "Yes." "And Earth?" Ro hesitated. "Yes." Silence. Then Mara spoke. "Then we don't let it finish." She turned to her crew. "We split." Shock. "No," someone said. Mara shook her head. "One team to evacuate, one team to core." Ro understood immediately. "You're going to overload it." Mara didn't answer. That was answer enough. The descent to the core was the worst part. Not resistance. Expectation. The system adapted faster the deeper they went. By the time they reached the central chamber, the structure itself was moving, like it had decided they were diseased. The core was not a machine. It was an ecosystem of energy harvesting lattices, living architecture built to process suffering. Mara stood at the edge of it, Ro beside her. He whispered, "This is not war tech." "What is it?" she asked. A long pause. "Economy." That was the final realization. The Dominion did not conquer for territory. They industrialized emotion. Mara raised her weapon. "Shut it down." Ro looked at her. "You'll trigger collapse across the facility." Mara nodded. "There are already dead." A beat. "And more coming if we don't." She stepped forward. "Do it." The system tried to stop them in every way it could. Not with soldiers, with pressure, with time, with the weight of lives still in transit. Mara hesitated once, just once, when she saw a recording feed, a child crying inside a pod, alive, waiting. She stopped. Ro saw it. "We don't have time," he said softly. Mara's hand trembled, then she pressed the override. The core reacted instantly. Energy inversion began. The planet screamed. The system collapsed inward, not explosively yet, but like a reality folding back onto itself. Lantern 2 shouted over comms, "Extraction complete! Get out now!" Mara looked at Ro. He nodded once. They ran. The escape was not heroic. It was desperate. Corridors collapsing, gravity failing, entire sections disappearing into energy voids. But behind them, prisoners were already moving, because someone had opened every route, because humans had started something irreversible, because fear had been replaced with motion. At the final docking ring, Mara reached Lantern 2 as engines flared for extraction. She looked back once. The entire planet was beginning to fracture into light. Ro grabbed her arm. "Go!" She stepped aboard. When the system finally collapsed, it did so silently across most frequencies. No broadcast, no announcement, just disappearance. The Dominion network lost an entire node of processing infrastructure in under 8 minutes, and with it, hundreds of thousands of prisoners. But not all, not nearly all. Survivor ships scattered across space like sparks, and among them, lantern vessels guided them home. The Council did not laugh this time. They did not speak much at all, because reports were no longer abstract. They were physical, real people, standing in chambers, alive, testifying. One survivor stepped forward during assembly, a young boy, holding a small red clip. He looked at the assembled civilizations, then said, "They took my sister." A pause. Humans found her. Another pause. They said they would come back for everyone else too. Silence filled the chamber. Not political silence, understanding silence. Because across every species present, one truth had become unavoidable. Humans were not reacting to war. They were undoing it. And somewhere far beyond the assembly, in the dark between stars, lantern ships continued moving, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something far more persistent, a promise that refused to stop traveling.